I'm a recovering addict. My name is Mike T, and this is my story on Inside Addiction.
Mike, tell me a little bit about how it was growing up.
Growing up, I grew up in the inner city of Washington, D.C. I grew up in this Christian, politically motivated, neo-hippie commune that was started by my uncle. His name is Jim Wallace. It was interesting growing up. I grew up in a predominantly black neighborhood. My parents were white. I'm biracial. I grew up in my folks felt very hypocritical about working with poor people and living in the suburbs, so they moved us right in. So it was just it was a lot of contrast. I went to almost an all-white school in a very wealthy neighborhood, and then I would come home to a neighborhood that was predominantly black and impoverished. And so it was just like, one extreme of this, one extreme of that. Learned on the streets, if somebody hits you, you come back with a bat. If they come back with a bat, you come back with a knife, so on and so forth. In my home, it was, if somebody assaults you, then you turn the other cheek. So it was interesting. I got a lot of mixed messages. I'm also adopted, so that took a lot of, it was traumatic. As much as I knew and understood that what was done for me as far as my adoption goes was done with my best interest in mind, and I still believe that to this day, it still created some issues with me, issues with feeling accepted, issues with feeling worthy, issues with self-esteem, things like that. Those were always fostered. Those things were always fostered to the best of their ability by my parents. I mean, I did not grow up in an abusive household. I did not grow up in, any kind of mental anguish or emotional turmoil, as a result of my parents, but just as a result of a lot of the questions that I had from my adoption and some of the extremes in my life. I eventually found drugs at the age of 13.
So tell me about the first time that you used when you found drugs at age 13.
It was like a light bulb went off. Like most people, the first drug I used was alcohol. And my parents were big in throwing parties and things like that, potluck dinners. And they would have, my mom would make sangria, big vats of like 5-gallon buckets, like drywall mud buckets full of sangria. They'd buy the wine, and then they'd cut up their own fruit and they'd let it sit for days. And I used to, like kids, I used to steal snippets of it. I wanted to be an adult, I wanted to be a grown-up, but I ended up liking the taste of it. So one time when she wasn't looking, I grabbed like a 7-Eleven Big Gulp cup. It was like the first time that they had actually made like these plastic take-home collector's cups. And I grabbed one of those and I dipped it in the bucket and I ran upstairs to my room with it. And I drank the whole thing. And it was like, I felt free, I felt, totally open. I felt like I could say or do anything. I felt very empowered. And from that point on, I was completely enslaved to a feeling.
So let's get into real deep into the progression of your use. It started with alcohol, what it progressed to, and the overall, track that ultimately took, starting with that, cup dipped in the bucket that day at age 13.
Okay. My progression was rapid. It was pretty obvious that I was an addict, I would say, from the jump in retrospect, but not too long after that incident with the wine, it was very obvious. I have a sister who's 11 years younger than I am, and I used to babysit her on Wednesday nights when my parents went to Bible study, and I would wait until my parents left, and I would watch them out the windows. They would go around the corner, and I would go out the back door and run down to the little local bodega, and they'd sell to anybody. And I would buy a 6-pack of Black Label, and I would turn around and come back, and I would get drunk while I babysat my sister while she was asleep upstairs. I was totally alone. There was never anything social about using for me. I think it created avenues for me in social constructs that I could be a little more free, open, willing to say and speak to certain people, girls especially, as a teenager, that maybe I wouldn't have spoken to, or took opportunities that I may not have normally taken. But there was also nothing social about the way that I used. It was about me getting completely intoxicated, completely inebriated, as much as I could possibly handle, and then allowing other people to take care of me and get me home. So it was a totally self-centered act from the beginning. 13 was the first time I got drunk, and then by the age of 15, I was already in trouble in school. I was selling marijuana, pornography, and alcohol out of my locker in Catholic school. It's a proud moment. I was expelled from that school for that.
But you were everybody's friend.
I was. Everybody but the dean. Until the pressure came down, until it actually got real, and somebody had to take a fall for something, and there were consequences involved, and then all of my friends were like, "It's him." I was doing whippets, and I passed out in the locker room, and I woke up to probably every student's worst nightmare. His homeroom teacher, the dean of students, the principal, and the maintenance guy all standing over him, asking me if I was okay. They ended up searching my locker after that, and they found all of this stuff, and I was expelled. And that was probably my first experience with like losing something that wasn't like material or monetary. I was on a scholarship to that school for football, and I lost it. I lost that aspect of my life. I've never played football since. It was something that I really loved, and it caused some pain for me. So I guess after that, the progression, it just got worse. I was kicked out of school, so I ended up going to a public school, and in that avenue, in that school, I was able to hook up with some old using buddies, and I quickly figured out, like in a public school, you get lost real easy. You can cut school and nobody knows.